to Education Without Borders. In this lesson, we want to relearn and learn. And learn again, if need be, we want to unlearn. What do we mean by this? When you see a fire, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? The first thing that comes to my mind when I see a fire is the question, what could have been the cause of this fire? Where did it originate from? What this tells you and I is that fires don't just happen. There is a cause for fires. And we have seen fires in the recent past. We have seen fires everywhere. And there are fires, they could be wildfires, which come from, they are blown by the wind and come to our homes and places of habitation. There could also be fires from within. If I look at a house, a typical residential house, what could be the cause of a fire? The first thing that would come in my mind is the kitchen. In the kitchen is where there may be appliances and gadgets which could easily be causes of fire. And this could be matchboxes which are kept carelessly. There could even be candles kept close to children. And we know our habitats and our homes have a lot of flammable materials. When I look at an office space, for example, or anywhere else for that matter, these days we have gadgets, we have electricity, we have sockets, we have plugs all over the place. When you walk into any office, you can't fail to see a socket or a plug. You can't even fail to see maybe lights are on, and maybe there's nobody in that room, nobody is using the lights. And so what we need to relearn is coming from the first principles of science. Science taught us from first principles that machines make our work easier. And machines are not necessarily tractors, the combine harvesters, the aircrafts, and so on. We have machines all over us. Even a simple mobile phone is an appliance which was meant to make our life easier. Electric kettles, electric machines, washing machines, all those, even computers, laptops, they all make our life easier. But if you look closely, you'll find that there also could be causes of fire. And the most probable cause of fire I think about is a plug. If you look at a plug, is the one that comes into direct contact with electricity. And even before we get there, we're talking about fire. And fire is simply as a result of heat, elevated temperature. Wherever you sit, you are in an ambient temperature, and maybe the clothes you are wearing will not ignite within that environment. But things and materials ignite when their temperatures are elevated. That's a basic principle of physics. And the cause of the elevated temperature, it causes heat, there's energy, there could be sparks, and causes of fire. And because these fires actually happen wherever we are, and they could happen to any of us, what are the simple things that we need to relearn? That is, remind ourselves from our basic sciences. Number one, all the time there is a purpose of every gadget that was put in place. A socket was put there and designed by the engineers so that it can either be switched on or switched off. You'll find there are some offices where that switch should as well have just been left blank because it's forever on. The lights are on until the bulbs blow up because of the heat after many hours of burning unnecessarily. Let us relearn that a switch was created to have the action of pushing in one direction for the light to come on, and using the same to push in the opposite direction for the light to get off. There was a reason why a switch was created like that. A switch was never created to remain in one direction throughout its design life. Let us relearn. The other thing is we have plugs, and the plugs have pins. The way the function of the plug is that it is supposed to fit properly inside the socket. And the action of making this plug fit in this socket is pushing inside. Let us relearn. The reason why the socket was not put together with the plug on already is so that you do the opposite action when you don't need it on. The opposite action is pulling out. So we have learned already, we know that there is a plug and a socket. The purpose of a plug is to push inside. And when it is misused, for example, you can put screwdrivers, metallic screwdrivers inside the plug. You'll be electrocuted because that's not the way it was designed to work. That will not make your work easier. Your work will be made easier when you do the action of pushing in so that it helps you to run the gadget. Whichever gadget it is, could be a light, could be maybe it's connected to an appliance. The action of pushing in and switching on means that when you are not using it, do the opposite. Pull out and switch off. This is the relearning we are talking about. We are not saying you don't know. If you know how to make it work by pushing in and switching on, how come you just forget that you don't, when it's no longer needed, you need now to pull it out, switch it off, do the opposite. So we are here to relearn the opposite of what you did to make your appliance help you to work. We want to remind ourselves again, or to learn, that there are different functions. In mechanics, physics has a very interesting topic called mechanics. And in mechanics, the basic principles are actions. Which are these actions? There's usually action of pushing. You can push, for example, the switch. You switch on by pushing in one direction, switch off by pushing in the opposite direction. You don't rotate, you don't knock. There is another appliance that will work by rotating, and rotating in one continuous direction. Could be clockwise. The opposite is anti-clockwise. We already know that these appliances or machines, simple machines, help to make our work easier. If that work is temporarily halted, how come we forget to do the opposite? How come we forget to unplug by just pulling, doing the opposite? We don't screw the socket, because when we put it in to help it make our work easier, the action we put was pushing in. We did not screw clockwise in a socket. So relearn. If you pushed something in, if it was designed to be pushed in, when it no longer is required, the action you need to remember, pull it out. Don't knock it, don't twist it, you know. So we are here to relearn. Again, there is something you need to remind ourselves within this topic of learning and relearning. Sometimes you even need to unlearn. There are certain things you are used to doing. I know there are people who are used to using the wrong instruments in the right place, using a screwdriver inside a socket. Can you unlearn that that is not what it was meant to do? It will not work for you. It can electrocute. It can even cause a fire. We said at the beginning, fires don't just happen. They are caused either by ignorance or by carelessness, by lack of maybe being reminded to relearn. It is the responsibility of Education Without Borders to educate our learners that there is a time to also relearn and unlearn. Let us zoom in our specialized work environment. For example, a dental clinic. There are very many gadgets. I keep going back to a dental clinic because it's an example of where there are very many instruments and very many electrical gadgets, and it can actually be a cause of even an accidental fire. And that can be very simply avoided by relearning. Don't leave any gadgets on. If there are any plugs in, unplug. There could be stray currents, unplug. And remember, water and electricity are not brother and sister. They are arch enemies. They can cause problems. If you have equipment with compressed air, which could be used to help make your work easier, when it is no longer required, for example, if the clinic is closed, do the action of switching off. If you switch on by rotating clockwise, switch off by rotating anti-clockwise, you release that pressure. Because when the pressure accumulates and it's left on, there is a possibility of an explosion. And if there's a spark somewhere, that will be the cause of fire. Let us relearn. This is Education Without Borders, bringing our learners to relearning on small, very simple tips of avoiding fires in the workplace. This is Education Without Borders. Don't forget to subscribe. If you like this content, subscribe, share, and like. And also, most importantly, give me a comment so that we may continue learning, relearning, and if necessary, unlearning. Let's keep our work environment and our homes safe. We shall be back with more in our next lesson.
Hakuna mtihani, hakuna mtihani, hakuna mtihani, hakuna mtihani.